Once again, you can also bring your refreshment to your table so we can start our main session without any delay. Thank you very much. Dear venerable audiences, we are now entering our main session, starting with our distinguished keynote speakers, followed by the expert panel sessions. Please join me in inviting our moderator, Assistant Professor Adia Sri Putri Purbantina, PhD, to lead our discussion for today. Dr. Adia Sri Putri Purbantina is an assistant professor at the International Relations Department, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, University Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Jawa Timur. Her areas of expertise include international political economy, Southeast Asian study, industrial catch-up, and national innovation system. She is the head of researchers and co-founder of a non-profit organization, Handarwan Institute, located in Surabaya, Indonesia. She holds a PhD in international studies, majoring in economic development of East Asian countries innovation for the Graduate School of Asia Pacific Studies, Waseda University, Japan. To Dr. Tina, the time is yours.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Adia Sri Putri Purbantina. You can call me Tina. I will be your moderator this morning, and first of all, allow me to welcome everyone here again at the Southern Hotel, and I would also like to welcome the participant who joined us online through Zoom and through YouTube channel. So I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Maitra, to come up to the stage, and then I can introduce you once you're on the stage. Please. Okay. I would also like to remind all of the participants who join us online later, if you have any questions, you have any comments, you can either raise your hands and the committee will let you speak, or you can also address the comment and your questions through our chat box, either on YouTube, or it can be on the YouTube channel and also on the Zoom meeting platform. Later we will have question and answer sessions after Mr. Maitra finish his keynote speech. The committee, maybe you can assist Mr. Maitra.
Hello and salam. This is Anangsha Maitra from India. I'm delighted to join you here. I'm handing over the microphone to the moderator. Thank you, moderator. Thank you for welcoming me here.
Please be seated first. I will read through your CV before we start our keynote sessions.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this morning we are honored to have Mr. Maitra here with us today. Let me introduce him first. Mr. Maitra is a PhD candidate at the University of Madras with the focus on India and, India's media and foreign policy. He earned a double degree in MA in English and International Relations, followed by a PG diploma in Mass Communication and Journalism. Mr. Maitra has cleared India massively competitive exam for professorship called National Eligibility Test conducted by University Grants Commission India. Currently, he is a journalist and a fellow at the Peninsula Foundations and the Center of Government Studies. Okay, I would like to hand the time to Mr. Maitra to deliver his speech on the Empires of Aspirations, Indonesia and India Serenade to the Radiant Future. Mr. Maitra, you have 20 minutes for your keynote session, and we will have a short question and answer later, and then the committee will remind you when you have 5 minutes left.
Thank you, moderator, for introducing me. And it's my pleasure to join you here. This is thematic on SDG and how the two countries, Indonesia and India, are transforming and architecting their future. So as I begin my speech, I would like to recall poet Tagore from my country, who went on to acquire a Nobel Prize in literature. I would recite a poem. I'll start by reciting, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the knowledge is free, where the world hasn't broken off into fragments by narrow domestic worlds, where words come from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection, where the clear stream of reason hasn't lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dread habit, where the mind is laid forward by the tree into ever-widening thought and action, into the heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. This is the Tagore's poem. Now let me begin with my thoughts, which basically dwells into the two countries, India and Indonesia's perception about the SDG and their working agendas. So, the UN Secretary General Hammarskjöld once said that the UN was not formed to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from the hell. Similarly, the SDG in this tumultuous and intricate world, one of the most pronounced, most promising yet most challenging drive, the SDG, is not something which would create an utopia. Rather, this is something, this SDG is something, this is essential tool to avert a dystopia-like situation. We were used to the normalcy, but we have seen how the pandemic disrupted and negatively impacted us. What is the normalcy is terribly impacted by the confluence of few things, including the pandemic, then, the Russia's war in Ukraine. So the SDG is something which helps us to attain new goals. One of the biggest thing of SDG is this is a modified version of earlier Millennium Goal. So this is something which is very much experimental and which is a modified of its previous edition. The SDG, ladies and gentlemen, it's a rainbow initiative. It's highly integrated and includes a plethora of interconnected issues ranging from poverty eradication, quality education, gender equality, climate action, and sustainable cities, and on and on and on. There's nothing exclusive about it. It includes everything and almost every living being, and at cases, the non-living beings also. That's the big thing about the SDG. And I'm glad to share, my thoughts from here, from the very town of Indonesia. At the same time, the country is perhaps leading the way and paving the way, making Nusantara its experimental capital. I'm sure the whole world will be looking at Nusantara. It's a future-ready and future-oriented city that projects all the aspects of SDG. So the core aspect of the SDG is that development must be pursued in a balanced and integrated manner, considering social, economic, and environmental dimension together. As I mentioned, not only the government is involved, there are a lot of actors, including the civil society, and I mean, across from the geographies, including the celebrities, sports personalities are included in this mission to achieve the SDG goal. Indonesia and India both are the victims of the challenges that actually the SDG speaks of. That means both our countries have the first-person perception about something. You can't say something which you haven't tested. For example, a cuisine, a problem in life, once it actually affects you, then only you can tell about how the things actually was, its feature and implications was. So both the country, India and Indonesia, we have witnessed many of the issues and we are fighting with that. And we are actually developing new ideas for it. India and Indonesia, both the two nations have scaled new heights by lifting social condition of its population. In India, about 80 crore, for example, you know, India's population is crossing even China's. It's 1.45 billion. So, world's largest demography it is. It's about the 80 crore, almost something, something bigger than the half of India's population are the beneficiary of its ration system, through which the either free or massively subsidized essential commodities like food grains are being distributed to the moderate income and lower economically backward societies. Similarly, in Indonesia founded its food grain program called Rastra prior to the most recent change in 1998, targeting about 15 million households. Now the population has increased, but Indonesia is yet to achieve its food sustainability goals. So we have seen initiatives like the credit card system, and I was marveled by the works of Abhijit Banerjee, the Nobel laureate from India, with his wife Esther Duflo. The author have made tremendous work on Indonesia's social economic condition. The both ventured into a book. It is published at Poor Economics. So both the countries, India and Indonesia, we rise by lifting the others. So our responsibility is not restricted or within the bracket of our own geography and our sovereign locality. We have, as we aspire to new leadership, we assume new roles. Both the countries have credible role in global food security. The two countries should be doing more in upcoming days to ensure food security and social security. India's premier research institute, ICAR, or Indian Council of Agricultural Research, has set new trends in agriculture. India and Indonesia should work on vertical farming. Despite Indonesia's reputation as an agrarian nation, the country is yet to be self-sufficient in food production. But I'm sure Indonesia will be exporting more, fulfilling its own homegrown demand. There are enough scope to collaborate in the spectrum of organic farming and fertilizers. Because due to the war in Ukraine, the fertilizers is one of the key issues that is affecting every household. Even you haven't heard of Ukraine ever, it's probably affecting you in this century. So there are enough scope to collaborate in these two areas. These two nations should engage more to change the fate of the farmers, because the agriculture is the key enabling factor in both two nations. We have a vast areas of agriculture, and that's one of the the main factors of our social revenue, and also for the sustenance. Despite high GDP, our GDP is something around, say for example, it's something around 2.5 trillion we have crossed, and we have much to achieve. So India's per capita income and HDI are not satisfying yet. A terrible gap is there among the haves and have-nots. Like poverty gives birth to crime, inequality hatches social problem and troublemakers. Reducing inequality through the SDG goals will be the top priority for both the nations. India's caring 4 to 8 square kilometer density is a challenge to its administration. A large youth population in Indonesia is addicted to drug. Local administration will have to find roots and bring down the numbers of drug addiction. Drug addiction can lead to social security crisis, as you know, the terrorists earn money from such commodities and situation. And being in a locality somewhere between the Golden Crescent and Golden Triangle, India, Indonesia should be, working on these issues for mitigating these challenges. During its G20 presidency last year, Indonesia set 3 priorities in the line of SDG. These are, and I read, global health architecture, sustainable energy transition, and number 3, the last one, but not the least, digital transformation under the overreaching theme of recover together, recover stronger. My young friends and attendees, those of you who are here, you probably haven't seen, you haven't heard the radio. You actually didn't witness those days of television, the black and white television, where each of them actually surrendered to a tiny device handled in our phone. It gives you everything. So now, this cell phone, the tiny phone in your, in your palm, on your palm, it can acquire everything. You can acquire land sitting from Indonesia, you can acquire somewhere in Africa or in the US. You can do coding in elsewhere. For example, when it comes to coding, I must say the British was ruled and then English has mandated, is the mandate and the global tongue. Now the Mandarin is becoming. Look at the computer tongues. Java is the de facto language, right? So that's how Indonesia has the power and capability. And with smart transition, digitalization, I believe Indonesia will pave the way. There are brains, we need to tap these talents, and we would have to work in the line of SDGs. The young populations here, you have to innovate more, ideate more, and create more codes that actually work and that engineer services and products that actually helps us to transform lives. So digital inclusion and infrastructure building is paving way for sustainability. There is no room for doubt. In India, the high-speed internet connectivity has been a blessing. It has upskilled several people, spread digital literacy, and made them employable. For example, Facebook has over something around 700 to 800 millions of users. Understand, 700 to 800 millions. Many countries lack this population. They form a digital republic. After the acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp, the triumvirate, Facebook, the Meta, the parent organization has a big monopoly of stretching its arms over the 3 companies. So they have so many people connected in a single platform. So data companies should have a bigger role. Similarly, in Indonesia, they should be working on the sustainability issue. And your government has a particular policy. I'm sure they will. The foreign data companies will be restricted and regulated by this norm. They will have their own data center in Indonesia, like India is working for the security and other national concerns, for achieving the national interest. Implementation of Aadhaar system or UIDAI has brought tremendous result in India. It has brought accountability. Similarly, digitalization here in your country, it has averted the crisis like, say, for example, the many scams and many, corruptions. Once polio and child rate mortality was a reasons to worry, but now India has achieved big success in overcoming such problems. The 2 nations will certainly converge and envision a transcendent future by eliminating these barricades. Indonesia and India have thrillingly tested a fast transition in the lightning speed in the dawn of globalization. The growth of 2 nations was a confluence of 3 major events liberalization, globalization, and privatization. Under the leadership of Narasimha Rao, India reaped the seeds of liberalized economy. In Indonesia, the globalization hasn't only served the McDonald's and Hollywood. My friend, it has bought so many things. It has transformed our life. You and I, we all are in a sense intertwined in a destiny, and it is actually the result of globalization. Globalization is one of the biggest things in recent years. So, following the globalization, the Indonesia's economy bloomed, businesses started blossoming, and a disruptive event took place in the history. In the aftermath of Asian financial crisis in 1997 and 1918, like the rest of the countries in Southeast Asian fraternity, India's growth was halted. Indonesia's implementation of more liberal policies like India's by Narasimha Rao, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, has helped India to achieve more result. It included removal of import restriction, lowering of tariffs, increasing engagement in the international trade agreements. Suharto's new order is highly distinguishing from Sukarno's guided diplomacy, quote unquote, guided democracy. The new order introduced and unveiled by Suharto heralded a new era when multinational corporations started creating footmarks. That's the result. You are testing the new cuisines. The big hotels are coming in. The corporations are coming to employ the locals. Following which, India became the exporter of manufacturing good. It's now a seeker. It's no more a seeker, rather a supplier. From a buyer, my friends, Indonesia has become a brand maker. The Indonesian entrepreneurs and their enthusiasm, indomitable spirit, patriotism, and hard works of million skilled workforce are the key enabling factors. As India and Indonesia are working for a preferential trade agreement, which is known as PTA, there are more results to be expected. India is the fourth largest export destination of Indonesia, and similarly, Indonesia is the second largest trading partner in the ASEAN. I wish we could sign a comprehensive economic agreement. It has different connotation. So, the two states, as well as the Asian fraternity, have ideated Asian-India Free Trade Agreement, which was inked in Bali in 2009. Indonesia's investment in India is very low, despite India is the big source of investment. Indonesian side has requested New Delhi to reconsider its plan to impose dumping import duties. It's Indonesia known as BMAD on Indonesian viscose staple fiber or VSF, which is massively applied in the textile industry. As manufacturers are contemplating alternatives and shifting their manufacture bases and units from China, I think the two nations should explore more opportunities, ladies and gentlemen. In this land of nickel, joint ventures in electronic vehicle will be a timely act. The two nations can work in the RMG on the ready-made garment. The two nations have the functional expertise and capabilities to clothe a global population. The bilateral stayed through that 6.7 billion during April to November alone in 2022. Prime Minister Modi and President Joko Widodo during the G20 summit in Osaka in Japan set an ambition of crossing 50 billion bilateral trade by 2025. Economic progress unfortunately cannot get us the desired SDG. So 1/3 of India's total population is still economically insecure. On the other side, climate-related events have accounted for approximately 70% of disasters in Indonesia in the timeline between 1990 and 2021. Indonesia can associate with India's premier research institute like ISRO, for India's capacity operations like HADR, which is a defense exercise. We have several like Garuda and Samudra Manthan. So these will actually, during the HADR operation, will be saving lives. Mosquitoes, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to tell you one thing. In the human history, mosquitoes killed more people than the war killed.
So acquiring a Lockheed Martin, of course, ensures us security, but we need more mosquito nets. We need more beds at the multi-specialty hospitals. So these two countries will work more, and at the same time, when we need Sukhoi Su-35 or the Rafale air defense system, we should be working on this. The two states should allocate more money for social infrastructure, healthcare, and education to accomplish SDG goals. India and Indonesia are painting the canvas of tomorrow's dreams. President Joko Widodo instructed the village development should change every life of villagers. In India, we have something around 7 lakhs of village. Similarly, in Indonesia, the village minister Abdul Halim Iskandar has implemented village SDG, which the first goal of SDG DESA is eradicating poverty. So National Development Planning Agency is at the helm of SDG and seamlessly working to accomplish its 169 targets. So we need more private attention. We need the business bodies, the NGOs and the business communities, the ombudsmans like Kadim should be working on it. The CII, India's trade body, has a chapter here in Indonesia. And Kadin, an influential business ombudsman, has over, a big network across Indonesia. So MSME should be actually, MSME should be focused. We need more investment, and due to geographical traits, Indonesia's trade logistic performance is not satisfactory or doesn't match the status of Asian members. So in Indonesia ranked 61 out of 139 countries across the global trade in terms of trade logistics. As the traffic is turning frustrating, roads are getting congested, Indonesia has the option of experimenting alternative means of travel like metro services in more cities like in Jakarta. Indonesia has taken several steps to decrease its dependence on fossil fuels. We know its coal emission, carbon emission is still it's debated. So India and Germany has worked on the areas like India and Germany has collaborated on the issues like green hydrogen and other green activities. So considering the carbon emission and environmental hazards, that Indonesia should be working more on the green hydrogen production. India has a low-kiss policy. Indonesia too should consider working at the looking west. If the two nations look at each other, there are more to wonder, much to learn and earn. India's special attention on millet is a timely act. And other nutrient variants from agriculture, both countries should be focusing on. When the countries are facing acute shortage of food grains, BC's Ukraine is known for the food basket of the world. My friend, India and Indonesia should be working to keep the food basket ready in both countries. Indonesia will have to ready its own logistics and supply chain. I'm sure together we'll accomplish more. Thank you. I'm really sorry for going longer. I would like to conclude my speech with a poem written by Pablo Neruda. My very favorite poet, in fact, it's translated one. I'm not going into the deeper one, but please excuse me. You have already excused me several times, but I'm going shorter. This is by Pablo Neruda, my very favorite poet who speaks Spanish. They buy countries, people, seas, police, country councils, distant religion where the poor hoard their corn like misers their gold. Standard well awakens them, clothes them in uniform, designate which brother is the enemy. And the Paraguayan fights its war, and the Bolivian wastes away in the jungle with its machine gun. A president assassinated for a drop of petroleum. A 1 million-acre mortgage, a swift execution of morning mortal with light, petrified, a new prison camp for subversives. In Patagonia, a betrayal, scattered swords beneath a petrophilious moon, a subtle change of ministers in the capital, a whisper like an oil tide. And Jap, you will see how Standard Oil's letters sign above the clouds, above the seas, in your home, illuminating their dominions. Thank you everyone for paying attention. I'm sorry for going longer again. My humble apologies to the speaker, to the line of speaker. I'm really sorry for going longer. Salam and all the best. I wish we should accomplish our goals very soon. Thank you. Thank you everyone. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maitra. Yeah, I think, thank you very much for a passionate keynote speech. I think really an inclusive SDGs is really needed, like soon. Due to the time limit, we will only have 5 minutes for question and answer. Or if you have any comments, maybe you can raise your hand in the, for those who are right now in the hotel hall. But if the participant online on Zoom or YouTube channel wants to give us any comment, you can also raise your hand online, obviously, and then also, or you can just type in your comment or questions on the chat box. Maybe we can have any comments. Oh, yeah, I see her. I saw her first. Yeah, you can come up, and committee, can you give her mic?
Sorry for come forwards to here because.
Oh yeah, please you can.
Please come forward.
Up. Yeah, so that please come forward so that the camera can capture you. Because the camera is only. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hello, good morning. I'm
morning.
Maddie. I'm actually from the Philippines, and I really enjoyed the talk. So what I got was, it was mentioned that the SDGs are a rainbow initiative, and it encompasses a lot of the problems of the world today. And I think that you mentioned also that globalization helps in achieving that, since it's encompassing also. But I know that globalization increases interconnectedness, right? Since it increases connectedness, it creates also a plethora of areas for cooperation. For example, like what was mentioned in India and Indonesia. However, even if it creates areas of cooperation, it also makes countries susceptible to crisis since you're already connected. So my question is, does Indonesia have plans or risk assessments policies to counter the spillover crisis in any case?
Sorry, which crisis?
Spillover crisis.
From the Ukraine?
From globalization, since too much interconnectedness makes countries susceptible to spillover.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. I appreciate, but I would try to answer you in shorter notes. Others, if you have questions, kindly keep it ready so that the other speaker comment swiftly. My friend, unfortunately, we're living in an era of hyper-nationalism. So this question is politicized, your question. Globalization is a rainbow. If you look at the sky, it has all the colors, it has a different contours and implication. The vibrancy, look at the vibrancy of Indonesia. Look at where Africa is. If you ask somewhere in the West, perhaps even in the US, where they think, most of the Americans and a large portion thinks Africa is a singular nation. But if you look at the bigger brands, they have jumped there. McDonald's has a fascinating history how it's got into the landscape of Africa. So the foods and everything, the culture, you name a particular food, how you tested it. So it has traveled and accepted in the particular dome, in the region because of the globalization. Globalization is the medium. Globalization is the carrier. It depends what you carry. It's like science. Science innovates. Science can innovate virus also. Science can innovate a vaccine also. So it's up to you how do you utilize it. So that's the globalization. It's a two-dimensional picture. If you wish to, for example, in the internet republic, if you want to find friends, you will find. If you wish to find your haters, you will find it. So similarly, the country is up to the leadership to utilize this facility of the globalization. But a deglobalization is happening right now due to the hyper-nationalism and a lot of things. So I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you so much.
Anyone?
Okay, thank you very much. The committee, can we still have one more questions, or is our time up? Time up, okay. Okay, sadly, however, our time limit for the keynote session has to end now. We thank you again, the committee would like to thank you again for Mr. Maitra for your keynote speech. You can go back to your designated table, but before that, the committee would like to present the certificate of appreciations to Mr. Maitra, and may I please invite the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Dr. Yuli Chandrasari, to please come forward and then present Mr. Maitra the certificate. Mr. Maitra. Okay. The committee also have a souvenir for Mr. Maitra as our keynote speaker this morning. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Maitra. You can go back to your designated table, and the committee, maybe you can help Mr. Maitra to bring down his devices, and then also to prepare the stage for the expert speaker sessions. Please give another round of applause for our keynote speaker this morning. Okay, is everything ready? Okay. Okay. Now. Okay, now we will moving on to the expert speaker session, and I would like to invite our three expert speakers on stage. Please give a warm welcome to our three expert speakers with us on stage, offline, right here in the hotel. We have Dr. Saloma Akpenonu, the Dean of the School of Social Sciences of the Ateneo de Manila University, and Assistant Professor Januari Pratama Nuratri Trisnaningsias M. Mekas, and also from the IR department, UPN PJT. And also joining us online, I'm not quite sure whether we can see him, but we also have another expert speaker, Dr. Upalat Korwatana Sakun. He's from the Waseda University. He's joining us online this morning from Vienna. Okay, the committee is the third expert speakers joining us already? Okay. Okay, so our first expert speaker this morning is Dr. Saloma Akpenonu, and then followed by Dr. Upalat, and then Mrs. Januari. Expert speakers, we are thrilled to have you this morning, and each of you will have 20 minutes for your presentations, and then followed by 10 minutes question and answer session. And I would like to read The CV of our first expert speaker, Dr. Salma Akpenono, is, I'm sorry for the mispronunciations whatsoever, is Professor Sociology and Dean of the Social Science of the Ateneo de Manila University. She obtained her doctoral degree in sociology from the beloved university. Her MA in Population Science from Peking University, her BA in Sociology from the University of the Philippines in Diliman. Her professional responsibility include being chair of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, director of the Institute of Philippine Culture, president of the Philippine Sociological Society, president of the Women and Gender Studies Associations of the Philippines, vice president of the Research Committee on the Sociology of Science and Technology of the International Sociological Associations, and chair of the Technical Panel for Social Science and Communications of the Philippines Commission and Higher Education. Her books include Possible Words in Impossible Spaces, Knowledge, Gender and Information Technology in the Philippines, Casa Bologna, I'm sorry for, again, mispronunciation, I'm bad at this. Vintage Houses of Bawal. Many Journeys, Many Voices, Filipina Overseas Workers, 1960 to 2010, and Food Consumption in the City, Practice and Patterns in Urban Asia and the Pacific. Her study covers social development, the built environment, and responsible consumption and productions, promote a problem-solving mode in social science engagement. This morning, Dr. Saloma Akpenono is going to deliver her presentations on the green public spaces in the southern cities, degrowth as pathway to sustainable well-being. Doctor, you can start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, for the introduction. This is my pleasure to share with you my studies or my interest on public green spaces. I've already started working on the built environment with my study on ancestral houses, food consumption in vertical neighborhoods. This is what I call the condominium. And now looking at public green spaces in a number of cities in South and Southeast Asia. So I'd like to also acknowledge the members of the audience who are joining us online. So it's seldom that we talk about international relations and green spaces, and it's also seldom that green spaces talk about international relations. So I think today is a good time to talk about these two topics. Right, let me just check the time that I will not eat up. 20 minutes? Okay. Okay, so let me... So let me start. I don't see the slide, but I think it should show you.
Yeah. The committee, can you show the Dr. Sherina slides?
So I'll just,
okay.
We should now be on the first slide, which shows a park. So in coastal land-constrained Asian cities like Singapore, Shanghai, Metro Manila, and Chennai, public spaces are under constant threat of enclosure and privatization as cities become central sites for capital accumulation and investment. So we have already seen that a lot of parks will be converted into parking spaces, into even administrative buildings, government spaces, and roads. So we are now at a stage where we talk about, or we worry about, public spaces being under threat. And this would have implications on our ability to achieve SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but have you shared your PPT?
I sent it, yes. So it's not there? Okay, so do I present from my...
Okay, I'm sorry.
What we could do is actually we could move to the next speaker before, so that you could look at my presentation.
I will check.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, the committee is re-preparing. I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
Okay, let me just go on and then the slides will just follow me. So this would have implications on, a growth-oriented planning and spatial logic development would have, as I've said, implications on our ability to achieve sustainable well-being, SDG number 11. And I'm looking at ways in which we could actually counter the hegemony of this growth logic. And we already have seen urban degrowth in a number of areas in our cities. Now, for example, there is sociological transformation, which we call deindustrialization, or the process of social and economic change caused by the removal of industrial capacity. And the famous example here is Detroit in the United States. So there's deindustrialization, okay, there's there, and then there's urban depopulation, or a shrinking city, because most of the inhabitants in the city have moved to other places. So these are examples of urban degrowth. Now, for our study on green public spaces, we're looking at degrowing cities where there's happening, or where we could see alternative ways of satisfying human needs that reduce the acquisition and appropriation of commodities and private spaces. So degrowth is an alternative logic to organizing human life in cities by promoting ways of meeting needs, because we all have human needs, and achieving well-being beyond capitalist values through sharing, simplicity, conviviality, care, commoning. So I will show that how we achieve degrowth in parks. Right? So the starting point here is that there is a threat in many of our cities, and maybe degrowth is a way to counter the threat that many of our cities are facing, because cities are basically sites of capital accumulation and wealth generation. So parks. Next slide, please. So parks, we see parks as socially produced spaces, reshaped by people who use them, but also by environmental dynamics and as well as the norms of the institutions governing the use of these parks. And we are reminded here of the work, and it's very useful to think about the work of Lefebvre, which talks about how we look at space as a lived space, where we just use the space as conceived spaces designed by other people. So it can be designed by landscape architects. It can even be designed by ordinary people. And space as perceived. So we have a perceived, conceived, and lived space. The lived space is the space that we interpret. There are many signs of spaces, and we attach meanings to this space, and this is how we organize our lives. Now, if we frame this use of space as conceived, perceived, and lived, we are actually looking at space, we are acknowledging that space and material objects are actually framing our behavior. So we have to acknowledge the social materiality. The social is affected by the material is affecting the social. So this is how I would look at park making and using Lefebvre and Leonardi. Now, when we look at parks as an alternative to growth logics, we are, next slide please, we need to acknowledge that there are human needs. And here my heuristic device for understanding human needs is to say that there are 3 types of needs. So we move to the next slide. You'll see that there are material things, there are the needs also of the person, and the need of the community. For example, for material need, we need to be provided with material necessities for life. We need to eat. That's what we're doing now. We need shelter. We need all these things. But also as a person, the personal needs to develop as a person, to make our own life choices. But also we have societal or community needs. We need to be granted protection by society, to have a say in the shaping of society. So my argument here is that parks are actually sites by which certain needs can be met in the framework of degrowth. So let me explain that further, how I look at parks. I'm looking at public parks. when we meet needs, human needs refer to the next slide, please. It's either we have preferences and we have needs. And when we satisfy human needs, that's what will bring us closer to sustainable well-being. So it's needs over preferences. If we just fulfill because of our need, what we desire, then we might cross planetary boundaries. So the satisfaction of fundamental human needs over preferences and within planetary boundaries is what we would call sustainable well-being. And this is the notion of sufficiency as a societal agreement on how much is enough. So this has to be discussed within the society. We cannot impose this. SDGs cannot just say, oh, this is what your needs are. It has to be discussed. What is needed for a safe climate and prospects for a just and flourishing society. So we are balancing planetary needs and human needs. So my argument here is that, well, we can understand degrowth, we can understand the fulfillment of sustainable well-being, achieve SDG 11 by looking at parks. So this is the question I'd like to work in this study, when and under what conditions do parks become sites of urban degrowth practices? And this is part of a 4-country study. It was an international team funded by the Swiss Network for International Studies. We looked at parks in Chennai, Metro Manila, Shanghai, and Singapore. These are coastal megacities. Students would know that we are always asked about the selection criteria for our research sites. Suffice it to say that we chose this because these are coastal megacities experiencing significant growth and expansion, and the parks are under threat of progress and development in these places. So this is a qualitative study. So interviews, observations, which is really fun because, yeah, it's a walk in the park, literally and figuratively. So it's a qualitative approach using human needs as frame for the meanings of going to the park, so that we may understand how such practice of going to the park translate public spaces into human well-being. Again, remember that model of the needs. If you satisfy all 9 needs, then that should be well-being if it's in balance with the need of the planet. So let me share with you very briefly the urban degrowth practices that we have uncovered in the 4 parks. So first, there's loitering and non-commercialized pleasure in a society which put emphasis on being productive and rushing through the day. The parks is a space for loitering and non-commercialized practices. Most of our key informants talk about the differences between parks and malls. In malls, there's a pressure to consume, there's a pressure to buy. That's the idea of a mall. In parks, it's a big space, there's not really much pressure to buy. You'll see later there will be vendors, but there is no pressure to consume. Because malls are private spaces masquerading as public spaces. These are private, commercialized spaces, pretending to be public spaces, while public parks are really public parks. So we will also see that in parks, we see informal work and subsistence economies thriving. There are physical spaces for vendors to earn a living and be relatively safe from sidewalk clearing campaigns, especially in the cities of Metro Manila. There are campaigns to clear the sidewalk. It's a regular campaign. So this is where you would have a space for vendors. Now, most park planners we've interviewed actually recognize the importance of having vendors, informal economy spaces in parks, because they make the parks lively. They also respond to the needs of park users. So sometimes there's a mistake that we need to homogenize parks, we remove the vendors, but actually, in an urban degrowth setting, there should be vendors in the parks. There should be informal economy work in the parks. Now, of course, there are barriers to degrowth. There are what we would call hostile architecture. We would make it impossible for the informal vendors and the homeless to thrive in the parks. The anti-poor park-making practices with fences and gates and control activities. Because, as we say, whatever makes the middle class and the upper class safe is a space without the poor and the informal sectors. And therefore, this is not degrowth because we are eliminating other users from the parks. Right. Then the other urban degrowth barriers that we observed in the parks in the 4 cities refer to the elite capture and status consumption. There's a tension between activities of low-income groups. Mostly, their activities are around earning a living. This is human need number 1, the need to have material needs in life. And the rest of park users who are there to jog, who are there to lose weight, who are there to just relax, which would actually be falling under the needs of the person to fulfill one's notion of a good life, for example. So there are tensions between the various users in the park. So these are urban degrowth barriers that we have to consider. Now, what I'd like to point out here is that, yes, there are possibilities for urban degrowth in our parks, but they will not be easy. So park making as a social and spatial practice in the cities of Singapore, Shanghai, Malaysia, and Chennai reveals the different ways in which park practices can challenge the dominant growth logics. So we have forms of commoning. Commoning means everyone can have access to the park. There is a space for conviviality, care, and sharing, as opposed to consumerism, in a way that people are free to stay in the parks without being pressured to consume. Now, there are many ways in which green public spaces satisfy human needs in cities by allowing people to have contact with one another, including a sense of being part of a community or having contact with nature. Loitering was valued by most parks. That's really advanced now. Back the slide first. Loitering was valued by most, one more slide, by most women in our study, with the park as a unique space for engaging in non-productive activity. Okay, so degrowth is, as I've said, just loitering and being not productive. Okay, next slide. Now, what I'm sharing with you today contributes to the promotion of degrowth, specializing degrowth in cities by forwarding the relevance of needs satisfaction as one way of evaluating urban development beyond growth logics. So we still talk about need satisfaction in a modern society, but hopefully we don't talk about preferences, but really maintaining what is enough for us in order to thrive in a society. So this means that when we talk about development beyond growth logics, we have to look at gender, age, and class, and how they shape people practice parks. Second, my presentation, what I want to do today is to reveal the significance of the systems of provision. We take it for granted that there's a space here, there are objects here. We take them for granted, but objects actually could, and the space could actually influence our behavior. So the way parks are designed, the services that are offered in the parks will actually result in degrowth or growth. In meaning commoning, which is an element of degrowth, or uncommoning, which is playing to the logics of growth and consumption. In many instances, the provisioning of parks is under the tutelage of elite and interests. Because who are our park planners? Usually middle, upper classes, who, as I've explained earlier, would not even think about the needs of vendors who you usually see as a threat when we are in recreational spaces. So I'd like to show that studying the everyday life dynamics is an important way of understanding degrowth, how we might combat a growth-oriented logic in our communities. So when we talk about these insights, what I'd like to point out is that what we need to do, and it's very simple, is to convince our park planners to design parks with different uses and users in mind. This is a very simple message, but sometimes this is just lost in growth-oriented logics. So there are many users and there are many uses of parks. Protecting the ability for diverse groups of people to satisfy their needs through going to the park as a practice is essential in the cities of South and Southeast Asia. Such an effort would require explicit institutional arrangements that consider the diverse need of park users and that protect against elite capture. And yet, even if we are successful in doing this, welcoming everyone to the park, parks cannot be the panacea to all the ailments in Asian cities. They remain islands. Okay, next slide. We're really advanced. Next slide, please. They remain islands in a space of a big space of a sea of growth. Well, I'm showing the map of Surabaya. There's actually so many parks here in Surabaya. In a vast sea of growth logics, it's even, we have fewer parks in Metro Manila, public parks in Metro Manila. Even though we see this, there are already many parks, there's this really just a small drop in that sea of growth logics where we all want to build up, we all want to develop our lands. So it made part of international relations. I said at the beginning that we seldom talk about international relations and green spaces in tandem. And as I highlighted in the conference theme, they become part of a global initiative for SDGs. We might just be able to achieve SDG 11. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharina, for your presentations. I guess I never really see parks as tools or a medium for a degrowth strategy. But I can say that as a citizens of the city, I think Surabaya is one of the city that first start prioritize green urban area. So I think that thanks to the previous mayor, and I'm actually as a citizen quite proud of that because of that. I think a lot of cities in Indonesia start to follow Surabaya steps after that mayor make a breakthrough because she was from the Department of Parks and Recreations, I think. Yeah. So thank you very much for an interesting presentation. And if anyone has any comments or questions, you can raise your hand here. I see 2 hands here. And also, I think there's one participant pointing out, giving us questions and comments on Zoom meeting. I will read the online comment later. But yeah, we have 2 questions, comment 2, 3. Okay. We can start from maybe Mr. Bimo first. You can come forward. And do we have additional microphone or? Okay, Mr. Bimo, could you kindly step forward so that we can see you on the camera? Yeah. Here? Yeah. Make sure that all of us online can see you as well. I think that's perfect, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and for Dr. Salamak Pedono, good morning. What an interesting presentation. And yeah, basically, I study international relations, but I put a big interest in cities, particularly city diplomacy. And I think this question might be a bridge between our disciplines. Well, I agree that parks are, the beacons or the island of the growth strategy in the midst of the hustle and bustle of cities which are trying to grow and grow. My question is, how does the strategy of the growing policy address the issue of political resistance, particularly in Metro Manila or any cities in the Philippines that you know? I would like to hear the experience that you have in the Philippines. How does the strategy of the growing city or building parks and expanding the public spaces address the issue of political resistance? Because definitely there will be some possible frictions with the local community. There will be some resistance from the developers. How do you or the community of Manila or any cities in the Philippines address this question? Okay, thank you for your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can have all of the three questions, the three participants who wants to raise the questions come forward first, and then later I will give the time to Dr. Sherina to answer all of the three questions.
Hello. I read your work on green practices and green spaces and well-being.
Can I have your name?
I'm AJ Raimundo from Ateneo de Manila University.
Okay.
So I would just like to say that I was born and raised in Manila, and I moved to Baguio, where I actually saw public spaces and public parks being utilized by public, people themselves. And I suppose when I went back to Manila and I saw how public spaces are not really public at all. I mean, there are parks, for example, in Makati that do not have seats or places for people to actually sit down and loiter. And loitering is not actually encouraged in public spaces in the Philippines or in Manila in general. I would like to ask, given that sort of situation, even in Baguio, there's an avenue there where every Sunday it is close to cars where they could draw using chalk and stuff. But recently, the mayor of Baguio City banned drawing or loitering in that avenue. So my question is, going beyond academic spaces, how can we allow public parks and the growth practices to flourish? What institutional changes must be made? Thank you.
Thank you. And one more?
Hello, I'm Lulu from Ateneo. It's not really a question, it's more of a food for thought, because I like how you describe parks as lived, perceived, and conceived, because it awfully sounds like social media, the way you described the barriers in the parks, specifically the showing of economic disparity and hostile architecture, because we can see especially in Facebook, there are a lot of in Facebook, the economic disparity shows with the different contents people consume in their Facebook walls, and as well as we can see hostile architecture in the disinformation that shows usually within the masses, in the Facebook walls of Filipinos. So yeah, that was just a food for thought. I think that we can do more urban degrowth practices, I guess, in social media as well.
Okay, thank you. The committee, can you please? Yeah, And I will read one more questions from from the Zoom platform. So there's one questions. Her name is Diana Teresia, a student from International Relations at the UPN Veteran Jawa Timur. She would like to ask, certainly in the development of green public spaces to promote sustainable well-being in the cities in the south, there will be risk or negative impacts that needs to be considered, political, social, and economic challenge. Are there any strategies that can be used to address these issues, and are there any case studies or concrete examples from cities in the south that have successfully implemented the concept of degrowth in the development of green public spaces and achieve sustainable well-being? So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions. I think the answer here is for all 4 questions, because it's actually, for me, the questions we're talking about upscaling, because we see this as individual initiatives, people using the parks. We see this as I've said, parks as islands in a vast sea of growth logics. So what we need to understand is this is really part of what we would call incremental radicalism. We are very radical by seeing the importance of parks. It's really already very radical. It's a radical idea, but it has to be done little by little, very incrementally, because as we know, when we are challenging a logic of growth and the economy. I mean, it's really important. We have material needs. We need to sustain. We need to live. And so we have these growth logics that we have to challenge, and being brought back to the idea that we have to live within the planetary limits. So this is what I would call incremental radicalism, if only to address the question of how do we scale up. Aryo was asking about resistance. There will be resistance, of course, but in fact, there is no resistance from parks, because parks can easily be moved away when your local government unit, and we talk about governance, will not see the importance of parks. It can easily be transformed into a building, a parking lot, anything that is also for the common good. So there is no real stakeholders for parks. They can, you see that you can protest, but in the end, these are really little initiatives. What is very common, and not only in the Philippines, is that our cities are designed by developers. It's actually developers which lead the way, and the government follows. So again, unless we have leaders, and it goes back to politics, and then it will go back to the quality of our voters, and so on and so forth, we need to understand that this radical incrementalism will have, incremental radicalism will have to start with people using the parks, to see that these parks are there, to just persist on using the parks. And as users of parks, as middle-class users of parks, we have to be aware that we need to give space to other users. The poor, the homeless, we also feel threatened by their presence, but in fact, it shouldn't be the case. In the parks that we studied, the upper class actually do not go to parks. Who are the people in the parks? The middle class and the lower income groups. The upper class, they have enough money to go abroad. They don't need to be in a public space. So we need, again, many of you are also upper class, so we need to fill in that space and see and show that there, and so that our leaders, our decision makers can see that there is diversity of users in that park. Yeah, otherwise, like ancestral houses, which is also my interest, an old house can easily go, can easily be demolished because the price of that land is very, very expensive if you build a vertical, a 70-story condominium. There's no way you can counter that. So it's a very precarious initiative, but we should not stop just because we might end up heartbroken and successful. So yes, I like the idea of we live in that space, that question about the lived space, and then making sure that we are able to express our needs, because designers can design without users in mind. So we need better designers, but we also need to express ourselves, being aware of how objects, infrastructure, spaces actually affect us. Who knows, some of you will become or work in park administration. We just really don't know, but we start having this awareness so that when we lived in that space, we are actually interpreting it in such a way that we are aware that we are here to satisfy our needs and not our preferences. And by doing so, we're able to achieve what I would call sustainable well-being and SDG 11. I think I answered for the 4.
Yeah, I think there's one more point that, is there any successful cases or close to successful cases? And an idea? Wow. There's still a lot of contradictory.
What I've seen is actually the threats. The threats. We are losing parks every day. Aroceros Park, people from the Philippines would know Aroceros Park by the river. This was lovingly taken care of. But of course, there is this elite capture part there. Usually, those who are for parks, those who are for ancestral houses, are actually middle class, middle upper class. So there is this elite capture potential of our initiatives, unless we ourselves are very conscious, as I repeat again, about increasing the diversity of the people we are working with. Otherwise, this is really middle class initiatives, not shared by the other groups in society, and any politician will just say, never mind, as they did for Aroceros Park, they would say, oh, this is just a small group of titas, we call those upper middle class women in society. They do not benefit the poor. So I have examples of threats, because every day this is endangered. The endangered splendor of our parks. But Surabaya seems very stable. Your parks are in the streets are safe.
Yeah, I will make a further comment on that later. But we have one more comments or questions from Dr. Demetrio. Committee, can you microphone please? Yes, please.
I'm Dr. Demetrio from De La Salle University, Dr. Saloma. It just came to me, an insight. Maybe one of the reasons why we have very few parks or very dysfunctional parks in the Philippines is that maybe our parks evolved from the plazas. And plazas are not really parks, they are squares designed for ventilation by the laws of the Indies and for parades and for ceremonies. I think that's one of the reasons, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I actually wrote an article about the colonial nature of our parks, that Rizal Park, for example, was designed by Burnham as part of colonial project, and Quezon City Memorial Circle was part of the design of the Aureliano Frost. And they were all, Manila Park, Rizal Park is inspired by the beautiful City Beautiful movement, while Quezon City Memorial Circle is influenced by the Garden City movement. So these are all global movements, and then they were brought back into Metro Manila. They have in mind the well-being of people, actually. So they thought Rizal Park can be a way for the poor and the rich to intermingle. That's why they were saying, imagining that in the afternoon, the kalesas and all the local people will be there. They also had the poor people in mind when they designed the Quezon Memorial Circle based on the Garden City movement. But what they had in mind there, when they say poor, are not really the poor of today now. The poor of today, these are the informal settlers, the really poor from the province. What they had in mind before was, for example, in Quezon Memorial Circle, the workers. It's a different kind of poor. So yes, the design the parks would not work if the diversity is not well represented, because we have a different idea of the poor. I like your food for thought on that. And because it's the change of administration over time. There are many needs to be addressed. They kept on reducing the green lung because you have other needs. And of course, again, the informal sector would really be a threat to many park users. So the plaza, it's part, again, that's quite different because that's before the Burnham and the Aureliano Frost designs. The plaza would be Spanish colonial era design. I think they were also meant to be that. I think in the provinces, plazas are still more accessible to more people, are accessible to more people. Again, it's now in the big cities where you have more commercial spaces. It's really a lot of factors coming in together. And if you're a park planner, you have to decide which to prioritize. Now, from our studies, what to prioritize is really making sure that you are able to protect access to the most number of people to the park. And so every time I talk to a planner, please add vendors, please make sure poor people are able to enter the parks. But thank you for that food for thought. It reminded me of many other things.
Is there any other comments or questions from the participant, both online or here in at the hall? Yeah. The microphone is over there. I'm sorry.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Raman Andres from Vidyamandala University. I was just thinking earlier, because in Surabaya, aside from the parks, we have car-free day. So they close down main avenues, and everybody's there. So I really like going through the car-free day. You meet everybody, people are selling things, you can play soccer, you can do whatever you want, jog, bike, whatever. So do you think that that is a viable alternative to parks? That's my question. Thank you.
Yes, Father Mon, because car-free zones are actually areas for commoning. You are not prioritizing vehicles over other people. Yes, there are really many degrowth practices, and there are many degrowth spaces. Which, again, it's a good point, Father Mon, that you mentioned. Streets are actually like parks. They are spaces, potential spaces for degrowth. Yeah. I think I'm out of my time, but let me just mention that
You still have 2 more minutes?
Okay, then I'll use my 2 minutes to thank. I'm really very grateful for the organizer of this conference, UPN veterans, Jawa, Timur Jawa,
Yeah.
for welcoming Ateneo students and for the summer, for the in-country field school. We are partnering with UPN veteran and with Vidyamandala Catholic University. Thank you so much. I mean, Father Mon is here today. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for
here.
coming. Thank you for partnering with us. Yeah. Well, we have 1 more minute, but may I please have like one last question? It's big. It's big. I want to ask this question. So, because you mentioned there's the growth spaces, but there's also the growth practice. I was just wondering, is there any like criterion, like on what kind of parks or what kind of spaces that can be considered as, you know, as an arena or area for degrowth? I mean, like, is there any like criterion that you have in based on your research? Is there any like specific? Oh, it must have this, or this, or something like, or yeah, because I've been wondering, because right now with the, I feel like everything can be, everything has the potential to be a degrowth arena. I was just wondering, in the case of park, what are the criterion? And then my final question is that, what do you think the institutional challenges when it comes to making park as the degrowth strategy? The institutional challenges. I mean, when it comes to the bureaucracy and everything.
Oh yeah, there's really no criteria, but there's a principle, which again, going back to what I said, increasing the diversity of users.
Okay.
So what that means, for example, is any space near a settlement where you have people going access. I mean, people who can access that. It could be anywhere and everywhere because accessibility is really very important to go to a park. I mean, if you have to ride and so on and so forth. Yeah, so any place can be a potential space for degrowth. But again, you have institutional constraints because the government can, because these are public spaces, the government can take these lands away for nobler purposes and can be justified by
because
any
sometimes the
reason.
policy can be just very top bottom, and because my father is he is involved in several like urban planning policy in Surabaya, and I think there's this institutional constraint is sometimes really just the main hindering for the main thing that hinders from
That's really true. I think I'm a sociologist. We recognize the importance of structures because even if we say agency is very important, individuals can change the world. At the end of the day, it's the structure which wins.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not the end of the story because the structures are made by people like us.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you so much.
It's true. Yeah. Okay, our time is up, I suppose. Thank you very much again, Dr. Sharina, for the wonderful presentations. We will now moving forward to our second expert speaker, Dr. Upalat Korwatana Sakun. Is Dr. Upalat ready? Is the Zoom ready for Dr. Upalat? Okay, I can see Dr. Upalat right now. Okay, Dr. Upalat, while you're, well, you can stay on the stage. You can also, it depends on your convenience. You can, whichever,
Yes, I just will like.
I'm about to read Dr. Upalat.
Within
CV.
seconds.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. The time literally is flying here, but the memories is going to stay. I'm indebted to the department and the warm hospitality, the wonderful moderation by Dr. Pubantina, and Dr. Ario Bimo is beyond thanking. His generosity, his depth, skill, and everything. I'm just, mesmerized by his abilities and his genuine concern. I'm really thankful to the department and also to the dean for hosting us yesterday at a eatery, which is also reflects the contours and the fabrics of sustainability. The eatery was made of bamboos. Thank you so much for inviting us. We are actually honored standing here. Thank you very much. Salam.
Dr. Sharina, you can stay on the stage, or okay, then we can pay attention on the screen. The committee will show us the Zoom meeting platform. Okay, Dr. Upalat, Dr. Upalat said that he cannot unmute himself. Can you please make sure that Dr. Upalat is unmute? Unmute, please. Okay, Dr. Upalat, can you hear me? Okay, then I will, while you're preparing for your slides, I will read through your CV a bit. Dr. Upalat is an associate professor at the School of Social Sciences, Waseda University. He is an international development economist interested in economic, environmental, and social development topics in East Asia and Southeast Asia. He has research collaborations with the international organizations and research institutes, such as Asian Development Bank Institute, ADBI, the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia area, and specialized agency and programs of the United Nations. He holds a PhD in international studies, majoring in development and economic analysis from the Graduate School of Asia Pacific Studies, Waseda University, Tokyo, Japan. He's actually one of my seniors, and we've been collaborating in several researches. And this morning, Dr. Upalat will share his insight on the United Nations University and Sustainable Development Goals. UNUIAS is a special case because it is specialized school for climate change and environmental issues. Dr. Upalat, the screen is yours. You may start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So let me share my screen first. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizer and especially Tina, like Dr. Adiasi, like to invite me to this like event. It's very insightful, and I've been enjoying a lot with the like all with all these speakers like so far. So today I just would like to present. This is not really an academic piece of paper, but actually it's just like the beginning of the research paper that I myself and also my colleagues at the Waseda University and also my supervisor from the Graduate School of Asia Pacific Studies, like we start this workshop this year in order to see what are the patterns or what are the initiatives that have been done by universities across nations to promote sustainable development goals or SDGs. So actually this is just kind of the like seed of the research, but we thinking to make it more systematic and then try to theorize these patterns or these initiatives across regions or like across countries. And then I think at the end of the day, like we would like to publish a paper together like with my colleagues and my supervisor from Waseda University. Okay, so as Tina was explaining about this special case, because as you can see, like from the previous speakers, like we can approach SDGs like in many ways, and actually education is one of the sustainable development goals, which is goal number 4, right? Quality education. But actually, education is not only the outcome of the SDGs, but it also can be the mean to promote SDG as well. So we have this concept called Education for Sustainable Development, or ESD. So that's why now today I would like to point out like the role of the higher education in promote sustainable development goals, and UNUIS or United Nations University can be a special case for this, because our university mandate is to promote SDGs and also the Paris Agreement, which is about the climate change and environmental sustainability. Okay, so I would like to present you some of the background of our university. So in 1969, Secretariat General UTANT of the United Nations proposed the creation of a university that is truly international in character and devoted to the Charter objectives of peace and progress. So to respond to his statement, the United Nations University was established by the UN General Assembly in 1972. So it serves as a bridge between the United Nations and the international academic community, and also provides a platform for global and local dialogue and creative new ideas. And this is the picture of our building in Tokyo. So our main branch or the headquarters is in Tokyo. So we call this UNU Center. And then we have like some like several branches across countries around the world. I think now we have around 20 branches. So if you have chance to come visit Tokyo, like you can visit this area. I think this is in Aoyama. So or like Shibuya, like if you know like the place or the name of the areas in Tokyo, you can see this like particular like building like this, and this just to let you know, this designed by Dr. Kenzo Tange. He's very famous and prominent Japanese architecture. Okay, so for our mission, we strive to contribute through collaborative research and education, dissemination, and advisory services to efforts to solve pressing global problems of human survival, development, and welfare. And this is the UNU system. As I just explained, like we have a few branches across countries, and most of them are in Europe. But of course, we see like some branches in Asia, Africa, and also in America continent as well. And the UN center, which is the headquarters, is in Tokyo. So as I said, there are many branches, but I had been working with the UNU IAS or UNU Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability. So this center is also in Tokyo as well. Now I'm also a consultant for this UNU IAS because I've been working with them before as a research fellow. I think it's in 2021. So I've been with them for 1.5 years already. So this is a center. So we want to, so this center is a research and teaching institute dedicated to realizing a sustainable future for people and our planet through policy-oriented research, education, and capacity development focused on sustainability. So as you can see from our mandate, like this is just, like closely or just perfectly related to the SDGs or sustainable development goals. So our center serves the international community, providing evidence-based knowledge and solutions to inform policymaking and address priority issues for the UN system. We also create new value by integrating expertise across disciplines in both academia and policymaking to mobilize knowledge for sustainability. So even though we call ourselves like university, actually main part of our task is the capacity building center and also think tank like research institute. So I guess like maybe 75% of our work is more like a research production, and then 25% is to educate our graduate students. So within our institute, we have three main thematic programs. The first one is biodiversity and society. So under this program, like they try to advance the sustainable use of biodiversity and ecosystem to secure their benefits for current and future generations. And these are some of the projects or programs that they have been implemented, such as post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework or research on ecological production landscapes and seascapes. They also have this capacity building program as well. And the next thematic program is water and resource management. So under this team, they try to transform water management by promoting decarbonized circular economy and enhancing resilience through decentralized natural resource management. And these are some of the projects that they have been done. And the last thematic program is innovation and education. So under this program, the team try to accelerate and mainstream knowledge generation and learning for sustainability transformation. So basically, under this program, they focus on ESD or the Education for Sustainable Development for 2030 agenda. So for our center, we also create and promote like networks and partnerships with academia and also research institutes and UN agencies as well. So for example, the first one, international partnership for the Satoyama Initiative or IPSI. This is a global network of 271 organizations working towards the goal of society in harmony with nature. So this one, they try to promote environmental sustainability. And the second one, regional centers for expertise on ESD or RCEs. So this is a global network of 179 organizations comprising a hub of existing organizations working on education for sustainable development in local communities. We also have ProsperNet, which is the promotion of sustainability in postgraduate education and research network. So this is an alliance of leading Asia Pacific universities commit to integrating sustainable development in education and research. So actually, like if your universities like want to promote like sustainable development goals or any like climate change related actions, then maybe you would like to consider this ProsperNet network or partnership, and then maybe you can be one of the members in the future. We also have these strategic partnerships in the UN system, like working closely with UNESCO, UNESCAP, UN Habitat, UNEP, UNDP, and other UN agencies. For example, the last thematic that I was talking about, which is the innovation and education. So my colleague, like actually she's one of my close friend. She came from UNESCO system, so she's been working a lot closely with UNESCO Bangkok and UNESCO Paris as well. So you can see that we are not only networking like within like our organizations, but also we try to network with other organizations like university or UNU agency as well. And the last but not least, we also have SDG University platform, which is SDG Up, but this is a network just only within Japan. So this one is network for Japanese university. We also offer training and short courses like intensive core courses, UNU Global Seminar and Global Leadership Training Program in Africa. And this is one of our unique part of our institute because not all the UNUs provide degrees to students. Like I think there are only 2 or 3 UNU branches that can provide degrees to students. So our branch in Tokyo, we have this postgraduate degree programs, offer degrees for master students and also PhD. 2 years program and 3-year programs respectively. So we have a good amount of number of students, like around 40 students, very small. So we are very close, and then our students have opportunities to have hands-on experience and then work with other researchers in the UNUIAS. And students are from like 24 countries around the world. Most of the time they are from developing countries, which account for 76%, like for example, African countries or countries in, like Asia, like South Asia and Southeast Asia. And we are very proud of our institute that we can support our students more than half, which is around 63% of our students get some sorts of scholarships or financial support by the Japanese government or by some private sectors. And we also have like partnerships with other Japanese university to deliver or to provide double degree and also joint diplomas, such as like University of Tokyo. This is the leading university in Japan, and also Sophia University and International Christian University. They are like top of the private universities in Japan as well. So this is just the overview of the MS program and PhD program. So we try to promote collaborative research and practical experience in integrating methods and resources from the natural and social science as well as the humanities. So actually we offer a variety of courses like ranging from engineer to social science, like public policies and so on. Because at the end of the day, I think our students will become policymakers in their country. So that's why we want to integrate all this knowledge to promote sustainable development in developing countries. So as I explained in the beginning, we have like 3 different thematic programs like within our institute, but also we have a special team called Governance for Climate Change and Sustainable Development, or GSD in short. So this is the team that I have been working with so far. This team tried to coordinate like all these 3 thematic areas together and try to promote partnerships or the smooth like networks like between like these 3 thematics and try to synthesize all the works together. And this year we have a special, we create a special program focused on climate action for the Paris Agreement, which was announced in COP26. So this program is specialized for the Paris Agreement, and then we condense all the knowledge about the Paris Agreement, like negotiation, or how can we conduct the climate actions, like from the experts across the world and across different UN agencies. So within this program, like students will learn like most of the hands-on experience in order to promote climate change and also to promote the synergies between climate change or the Paris Agreement and the SDG. Okay, and these are some of the courses that we offer like by the UNUIS, but of course like because we have our partners like from other university, so our students can also take courses from our partner university as well. Okay, so how many minutes do I have?
Wait, 10?
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 more minutes.
Yes, until 11 o'clock.
Oh, 10 more minutes. Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm very good at time management. Okay, so these are some of the courses that we offer, and I would like to just talking about like one of the example that we try to promote SDGs in our curriculum. So this is the course that I was involved as a main instructor, which is called the From SDGs to Climate Change, Implementation Strategies for its Adaptation and Mitigation. So the course title is very long, like in UNUIS, so we tend to have this abbreviation. So for this course, we called it in short FSCC. So under this course, we have 4 core instructors because we do believe that we want to integrate all the knowledge together. So that's why we have a different instructor, and also we invite guest lecturers like for other sections in our course as well. So for the course instructors, we have Professor Dr. Kensuke Fukushi. Actually, he's from the University of Tokyo, and his main expertise is in the water resource management and engineer. So he also the head of the academic program, like in the United Nations University IS or UNUIS. And the second person, like in the bottom part, Dr. Akio Takemoto. So he's also the head of the program of the GSD, or the governance for climate change and sustainable development. So he's my boss actually. And then I also involved in this course. So my expertise is in economic development and also social development. So I'm more prone to like policy analysis in this area. And the last person is Dr. Juan Pasta. So he's from the biodiversity team. So we try to balance our thematic programs like within this course. So the objectives of this course, like the main one is just to explore knowledge on the relationships between climate change actions and multiple SDGs. Because we do believe that there are like co-benefits between climate change actions and multiple SDGs, but of course there might be some trade-offs between climate action and also multiple SDGs. So that's why our main purpose is to explore all these choice and opportunities in order to maximize the co-benefits between the two and minimize the opportunity costs or trade-offs between the two. So the course also examines scientific, social, and political ways to prevent climate change by overviewing the international policy framework on climate change and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We also examine positive and negative social, economic, and environmental impacts caused by climate change, mitigation, and adaptation actions at national and local levels. And lastly, we try to provide an opportunity to understand how climate policy interventions can be sustainably transform society by enhancing synergies and reducing trade-offs with socio-economic impacts. And this is the components of our course. We divide our course into three blocks. So the first one, we just give the overview on the Paris Agreement and also the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, or the SDGs. And block number 2, we try to identify synergies and trade-offs between climate change actions and social, economic, and environmental impacts, and finding some solutions. So under this block, we invite guest speakers from like international organizations such as like Asian Development Bank Institute or some other UN agencies, or professors from other universities as well. And the last block, this is for the designing climate change actions that have co-benefits on the SDGs. So the last block, we provide opportunities for our students to work on this challenge by themselves under our supervision, and also other guest lecturer supervision as well. So in this block, we try to answer this question: how can the climate policy be designed to contribute to the SDGs in a selected city or country? Okay, so this just to show you like some of the requirements and grading policy. Like we have this class participation or like class presentation, and also research paper, which is the last block that I was talking about. And this is some of the course content. And then you can see we have a very good mix of instructors from different organizations, and then good mix of the contents of the courses as well. Okay, so I think that's the end of my presentation. So I would like to just give you some of my conclusion. So basically, this is just the beginning of our research, like try to look at the initiatives or some programs or policies that create by university, or how university across country can support or promote sustainable development goals. So I'm very looking forward to your questions and also some feedback and comments on my presentation as well. And if you have more questions, you can just send me to my email, and you can visit my website as well to see some of my publications related to sustainable development in terms of economic and social and environmental development. And if you are interested in our program like UNUIS, you can just visit this website. So thank you very much for your kind considerations, and I'm looking forward to your feedback and comments and also questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Upalat. I think you made an interesting. I think a lot of participants here are involved or in the higher education institutions. We are part of the higher education institution, and I think it's quite interesting to see how SDGs is being well incorporated into curriculum. So do we have, I will open for questions and answer sessions. Some people already raised their hands in the hall. 1, 2, is there another one? Okay, we'll start with the first 2 questions. Please come forward, and then, okay, 3. Oh, yeah, okay. We have 3 questions, 3 comments, 3 questions or comments for you, Dr. Upalat. I will let them deliver their questions or comment first, and then I'll give the time to you. Please state your name and institution first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Matty again from Ateneo, Philippines. I was actually really invested in this speech since as with the UN also, but the Office on Counterterrorism. And I'm really surprised that the UNIS teaches...
Maybe you can...
Oh, sorry. Okay. Teaches on how to advance sustainability, and you guys have also research programs on it. Now, so if the United Nations wants to frame SDGs as global goals, my question is, what measures should be taken to enhance policy frameworks for these developed nations to better ground themselves in achieving SDGs? This is given the fact that SDGs are not everyone's priority, Sometimes there's a significant disparity on countries with their priorities, especially countries with political stabilities that maybe won't bother in achieving our global goals. What kind of capabilities can we offer them given your research? And also, I'd like to note that you have many students who are part of these least developed nations, and maybe they offer a lot of insights on their current state, and I guess mobilizing them can be of better holistic approach in achieving the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Upala, did you catch the questions or comments? Okay, now moving on to the second questions or comment, please. Please state your name and affiliations.
Okay, so I'm Ray Martela Cruz, also from Ateneo de Manila University, Philippines. So the United Nations University, or like UAIS, is actually promoting about, you discussed about climate change and environmental sustainability. Okay, so I think for me it is very important, of course. So, but my question would be, in some cases, some students may not be able to attend or like get those programs, of course. So, and partnerships actually is not always accessible if you cannot, reach some linkages, especially in terms of geographical issues that may arise. So my question would be, what is the role of this institution in terms of local schools in different countries in terms of influencing their system or policies, while also considering their societal and cultural differences in terms of educational reforms that accommodates the SDG?
Okay, thank you. We have one more questions or comments from our keynote speakers, actually. Do you want to?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
My question is very short and precise. How can we translate the papers of intelligentsia into and working papers? Because there are a lot of talks, but how can we transform and translate them into efficient working strategy? And does United Nations University do that, or in a position to influence not just international apparatus but also in the local governance? Because the most of the world is still the rural section, and it's represented and administered by the local governments. So does the United Nations reach to the remotest level in the rural level? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Upalat, you can address all of the three questions now.
Okay, thank you very much for all these very interesting questions, and I found this is very exciting for me to answer all these questions. Okay, so let me start from the first one. I think the first person was asking me how can we enhance this policy framework like in developed countries or developing countries, and how to promote capacity, and then how to mobilize all these students as a strategy. So under this, like our UNUIS, like of course, like as I said, we are the research institute, and then we try to promote these policies like by producing all these like policy briefs, and then we have like talks and conferences with our like policy makers like from like different countries across the world. We also involved in this like T7 and then T20, which is the think tank like initiative like around the world, like in order to influence how the G7 or G20 governments or like politicians or this like all these powerful countries like involved in these sustainable development goals. So this is our initiatives so far. So basically we try to translate our research into the real policies, and then we try to influence all these policymakers like at the top level. And of course, this is linked to the third question, like from our keynote speaker, like how can we translate all these papers into like strategies, or how can we involve local governments? For our strategies, like we approach all the government like in different levels. Of course, like if we want to promote our policies like at the larger level, we have to approach the high level like political like countries or high level policymakers. But of course, like at the local levels, like there are the governments or the local government who implement the real strategies like in the local community. So that's why we try to do research on the local government as well, and then we try to promote capacity building for the local government. One of our flagship, program, which is called the Major Academy. So we invite all the majors from like developing countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, or like some other developing countries to attend our intensive courses on sustainable development goals, or like how to promote sustainable development at the local level. And then we try to like build this capacity for this mayor and also the local policymakers as well. And let me come back to the second question. So about the geographical issues. So basically, like when we select our students, we're looking at the geographical coverage. And most of the time, the students, as I said, like they are from developing countries, like from Africa or from like South Asia or Southeast Asia or some other developing parts of the world. So this is the best that we can do so far. And about the local school, like in countries, so we have this thematic program, which is called the Innovation and Education. So they promote this education for sustainable development, or ESD, by through this like ProsperNet, like by our network and partnerships with our local school or like local communities like in different countries around the world. So as you can see, like from my slide, like there are more than 100 or 200 like partnership or organizations that been working together with us to promote sustainable development at the local level and also at the national level as well. So I hope this answer all the three questions, but if not, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Upalat. Is there any following up comments regarding to Dr. Supalat answer earlier? Or do we have another comments, questions from the audience?
Okay, I just would like to add one point is that our institute is like we do many projects, programs, but actually we are very small. Like we, for example, my team, like GSD, we have only 4 to 5 like researchers or like staff, like including like supporting staff. So I think in total, like our institute, we have only 40 to 50 staff together, but we try to reach out to our partners and like all the local governments around the globe, like in order to create this like equal opportunities in order to build like capacity for the local governments and for like marginalized groups of people as well. So this is like we try our best, like with our limited resources, like financial resources and also human resources.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So basically, for the because the team is really small, you still rely on the effectiveness of the partners actually when it comes to the implementation, especially at the local level. Yeah, and because I've been as a citizen of developing countries, I guess I've been wondering about whether developing countries needs to have a specific curriculum addressing developmental problems and not just following the curriculum, which is at the moment with the globalizations, with the global educations per se. I feel like the approach is still from the developed countries, from the north. So I've been wondering whether whether there's need to be a specific curriculum addressing specific development problems in developing countries. I think that's what I've been thinking while I'm listening to your presentation. Is there any comment or questions from the audience? If not, I want to ask one question, Dr. Upal, because you mentioned that most of your students are, they are future policymakers, right? So is there any, I don't know, feedback or like maybe a forum where the graduates return and, I don't know, maybe any evaluations from what after they come back to their home countries, and maybe whether they're actually involved in the policy making sectors or not, and what are their suggestions on, is there anything that is still lacking with the curriculum design, maybe, yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. So let me respond to your first comment about this like tailor-made like developing countries like curriculum. Like I really agree with that, because even for the SDG themselves, like we let like all the countries decide their own path of development by evolving around these 17 goals. And of course, like each country, they have different priorities like for each goal, right? So for example, developing countries might want to focus on goal number 1, which is reduce poverty, or like goal number 4, like quality of education and so on. So this is, I think this is the beautiful part of the SDGs, like compared to the Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs, right? Because MDG is more like a order or some kind of set, like policy set from developed countries. But SDG, like we try to involve all the developing countries in the conversation and involve all the stakeholders into the conversations. So that's why I think we, like each country, they tailor their own targets in order to meet these SDGs within 2030. And this is applied to the curriculum in the education or like higher education as well. So as I said, like because each country, they have their own priority. Like, for example, your institute might prioritize something related to more like marginalized group of people, or poverty or something like that. Yeah. And just come back to your question about this concrete like evaluation of the returns of our education program. Like so far, I don't have the concrete statistics, but I think most of our students became like policymakers in that country, and then they are the advocacy of the SDGs in the policy implementations in their own countries. And I think some of them involved in NGOs, which is also can be another driving force to achieve the sustainable development goals as well, like in the Philippines or in like other parts of the world. So this is from what I seen so far. But if you asking for any concrete statistics, I don't have for now.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Upal, for your answer. I'm sorry. Is there anyone in the audience, online or offline, who wants to give comments or questions? For those who are joining us online, you can through Zoom, you can post your comments or questions on the chat box, or I'm not quite sure. Is there any questions or comment from the YouTube? Oh, someone wants to. Okay, please go ahead. There's one student who wants to raise a questions for you.
Okay, I would like to give a question.
Name and affiliation first, please.
Oh, okay. My name is Almirada Shakira, and I'm from UPN Veteran Jawa Timur. So I would like to question to Mr. Upalat. What was the basic reason behind the establishment of United Nations University, and there is connection to the SDGs, or it can be related to the impact of human security after the World War II? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions? No? Okay, Dr. Upal, do you want to address her questions?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think this is, I think my answer is in the first few slides, right? So this is just the initiative, like by SG or Secretariat General UTANT that want to connect this academic knowledge with the practical knowledge, and then want to have this organization that try to promote I think that term is not, it does not call it sustainable development, but it's more like a peace building and human development. And we evolve through time because we see different agendas that we have to focus on. And now like until 2030, we focus on the sustainable development goals and also the Paris Agreement. And I think this is the main agenda and the main motivation, like why we have this UNU, and then we have like many branches that focus on different things. For example, like UNU-IAS, we focus more on environmental sustainability, but other UNU might focus on like peace building or like economic development. For example, like UNU Wider, and we have like UNU CRIS that promote like AI and also like sustainable development and something like that. So different branches, we have different mandates, but of course we have the same grand mandate that we try to promote sustainable development in our society. And peace building is one of the goal, right? Which is goal number 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you very much, Dr. Upad. Is there any other comments or questions from the audience? I was wondering about one more thing, because you mentioned about the diversity of the students, right? The students coming from different backgrounds, from developing countries. But I was wondering, I'm not quite sure whether you mentioned this or not, but what about the lecturers? I was wondering about the diversity of the lecturers, and maybe the compositions of the lecturers. Maybe how many, like the percentage, maybe the comparison between the practitioner, especially coming from developing countries, versus, I don't know, maybe someone who's more in the academia. So.
I would say it's like half-half, like because we have partnerships with our University of Tokyo, Sophia University, and also International Christian University. So they are like academia part, right? But other lecturers, they are from like other UN agencies or some of the other international organizations such as like Asian Development Bank Institute or Asian Development Bank. And some of the central banks also join us in order to give lecture about the macro policy, like on how to build sustainable development, like in terms of economic, like macroeconomic policy and so on. So I would say it's half-half. And for the nationalities, like we have a very good mix. Like we have like from like developed countries and also developing countries like Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, or like someone from South Korea, Japan, or from France. Yes, so I guess our coverage is quite broad, and we have a very good mix of students and also lecturers. So that's why our course, like we can learn from our experience quite a lot, like because all different lecturers and different students share different experience from different countries. So this is one of another like beauty part of our program as well. And just to go back a little bit to your previous comment about the curriculum. So actually, like the higher education sector, like we don't really have to focus on the curriculum alone, but we can focus on something like some other initiatives as well. For example, like partnerships, or how to promote like extra curriculum activities and so on, or how to implement some projects or programs, like for example, like recycle products like within university or something like that. So we can think like out of the box. Like we don't have to just educate our students like through classes or like courses, but we can incorporate other programs and projects like that we can do in our university as well. So that's one of the points that I would like to give a reminder to all the audience. Like we can start from a very small step to sustainable development.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is the time up? Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Oba, so your time is up, but thank you very much for your presentation. I think it should give us a good insight to an alternative kind of like approach, I suppose, to HIE, and also I think because the Ministry of Education in Indonesia have also encouraged the incorporations of practitioner in our as a lecturer and contributing to the teaching in the higher education institution. So thank you very much again, Dr. Upalat. Please also stay for a bit until the end of the expert session, so that so that we will have a certificate ceremony after our last expert speaker. So thank you very much, Dr. Upalat. Now,
thank you.
Thank you. We will now moving on into our third and final expert speaker, Mrs. Januari. Januari, I will introduce Mrs. Januari first. Januari Pratama Nuratri Trisnaning Tias is an associate professor in the Department of International Relations, UPN Veteran Jawa Timur. She obtained her bachelor degree in international relations at the Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. In 2019, she graduated from the Center of Arabic and Islamic Studies of the Australian National University. Within the last few years, Januari has been focusing her interest on the human security and the sustainable development, particularly on women-related issues. Her publications on the mentioned field, including the attempting for more women-friendly environment in 2021, and the struggle of women football team in Saudi Arabia, also published in 2021, and the breastfeeding as the important key of sustainable development, published last year, 2022, and then also breaking the double burden, the challenge of women in self-actualization, published this year, 2023. Mrs. Januari will bring us to the discussions on the role of NGOs in the advancing SDGs in Indonesia. Mrs. Januari, I'm sorry. Mrs. Januari, the floor is yours for the next 20 minutes.
Sure. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my warm regards to all the participants here, to all the presenters here, who is coming all around, I believe it's the globe, or all around Indonesia. We have lots of presenters coming from all the way from Philippines and from the US and also India. I think they have come virtually, and in Indonesia as well, we have presenters all around Indonesia. We have from Yogyakarta, I believe, and Jakarta, Surabaya, Malang, Bandung maybe, and the farther one, I think it's in Medan. So my presentations today will revolve around the role of NGOs in advancing sustainable development goals in Indonesia. Particularly, I will discuss about one of the prominent non-governmental organizations called Muhammadiyah as one of the development catalysts in Indonesia. So Muhammadiyah is one of the non-governmental organizations, Islamic-based organizations that for more than a century has been at the forefront of sustainable development initiatives. From education and healthcare to disaster responses and environmental preservations, Muhammadiyah's endeavors span across various sectors, demonstrating the holistic and integrated approach they employ. But before we dive deeper, let's begin with some background overview about SDGs and problem we face in Indonesia. Maybe you can move to the next slides. Okay, if you look at the screen, the data presented provides valuable insight into the current status of SDGs implementation in the ASEAN region, particularly highlighting the performance of countries in relation to SDGs index. According to the data, Thailand holds the highest rank in the SDGs index among ASEAN countries, securing the 44th position out of 163 countries. This indicates that Thailand has made significant progress in implementing and advancing the SDGs within its national context. Following Thailand, there is Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, and Sri Lanka are also mentioned as countries with relatively high rankings in the SDGs index, showcasing their commitment and efforts towards sustainable development. Then the data further reveals that Indonesia holds the 6th rank in the SDGs index within the ASEAN region, with a rank of 82 out of 163 countries, and the SDGs index score is reported as 67.2. While the ranking indicates room for improvement, the score of 69.2 suggests that Indonesia has made commendable progress in several areas aligned with the SDGs. Indonesia's placement at 6 positions highlight both achievement has made thus far and the need to continue our efforts to accelerate progress and bridge existing gap. So if we move to the next slides, today we focus on our attentions on Indonesia, a nation grappling with its unique development landscape. As an archipelago state, Indonesian biodiversity is reported to be 1.8 million species, including those on land and below water. Then, preserving and sustainably managing the biodiversity is crucial, as reduce or damage biodiversity will have an impact on the global ecosystems. Meanwhile, Indonesia's economic growth reached 5.31 in 2022. It signifies a positive trend post-pandemic and reflects the country's progress in stimulating economic activity, attracting investment, and fostering domestic consumption. However, over 273.8 million populations in Indonesia have more than 2/3 of the populations belong to low-middle-income families. It's reported to be 9.57% in 2022, representing approximately 26.36 million people who have a limited access to the basic needs like the adequate food, proper shelter and clothes, clean water and sanitation, as well as education and health services. Then the poverty rates give impact to many aspects, particularly in the health sectors. Indonesia have the highest number of stunting, as well as the maternal and infant mortality rate compared to the other Asian countries. The data from Central Bureau of Statistics reported the number of stunting in 2022 is still reaching 21.6%, which is still considered high. And then the maternal mortality rate is 189 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births, and the infant mortality rate is 16 deaths per 1,000 live births. All the high number implies that the uneven access to affordable, high-quality health care and services, and poor health services management, and low level of people's awareness in the related issues. So, during this data, Indonesia in the health sector is still far from reaching the global goals. On the other hand, the education sector show that Indonesia have a quite high literacy rate. 98% of Indonesians were able to read. However, only 40.5% of the populations have completed high school. Those efforts are still needed to enhance access to education, improve educational quality, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all segments of society. Then seeing the gender gap index, Indonesia's gender gap index is reported also to be the highest among ASEAN countries and is considered high globally. This is manifested in various kinds of inequalities, such as in assessing education, securing the basic needs, career path and work opportunity, as well as the ratio in our parliament. So all the data you have seen in the screen indicates that Indonesia still have to work harder to meet the target of SDGs in 2030. As one of the most populous countries in the world, it seems impossible for the government to work alone. Partnership is obviously needed to meet the target from bottom up to top down, hand in hand with the international partners, local NGOs, and the people itself. We move to the next slides. So one of Indonesia's long-standing partner is Muhammadiyah, the oldest and biggest modern Islamic organizations in Indonesia. This organization was founded by Kiai Haji Ahmad Dahlan on 18 November 1912 in Yogyakarta. And as a modern organization, Muhammadiyah has territories, regions, branches, and sub-branches throughout Indonesia. And currently, it is reported that Muhammadiyah have more than 3,200 branches across the country and 25 special branches abroad from Malaysia, Philippines, Turkey, Russia, Egypt, the UK, United States, etc. Moving into the next slides. So, Muhammadiyah purpose is actually to enforce and uphold Islam, to actualize a community of Islam straightfully by implementing Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar, or it is literally translated into to maintain what is right and to forbid what is wrong. And it is expected to embody in efforts in all areas of life. Subsequently, Muhammadiyah effort is manifested in the form of charities, programs, and activities, and it is regulated by the bylaws of the Muhammadiyah. The effort of the Muhammadiyah is set forth in the bylaw as follows. First, instill confidence, deepen and broaden the understanding, improve practice, and disseminate the teaching of Islam in all aspects of life. And then the second, deepen and develop the study of Islamic teachings in various aspects of life to obtain purity and truth. The third is increasing the spirit of worship, jihad, zakat, infaq, waqf, and sadaqah, and all other good deeds as well as the grants. The fourth is improving the dignity and the quality of human resources to be highly capable. The fifth is promoting and renewing education and culture, developing science, technology, and arts, as well as improving research. The sixth is promoting the economy and entrepreneurship towards quality improvement of life. And last but not least is improving the quality of health and welfare of the community. In a more simple words, Muhammadiyah has devoted itself to education, health, and social activities since its inception. In 1912, far before the SDGs or even the MDGs, Muhammadiyah has played its role in advancing the sustainable development in Indonesia, particularly but not limited in the field of education, health, and community improvement. Next slide, please. Okay, we will go into the program of Muhammadiyah one by one, which is play a prominent role to the advancing SDGs in Indonesia. The first one with regard to eradicating poverty and hunger, as well as distributing social welfare. Muhammadiyah held around 300 orphanages and family care, which serves as home for children who have lost their parents or are unable to live with their families. These institutions provide shelter, care, education, and support to orphanages or vulnerable children, aiming to ensure their well-being and proper development. Muhammadiyah also operates 54 nursing homes that specifically caters to the needs of elderly. These facilities provide accommodations, health care, and assistance to elderly people who might require special care and support to the age-related challenges. The nursing home aim to improve the quality of life for senior citizens, ensuring their dignity, comfort, and access to necessary medical services. Moreover, Muhammadiyah operates 82 rehabilitation centers that offer support and services to individuals with disability or special needs, such as providing physical therapy, occupational therapy, educational supports, and vocational training. The objective is to empower individuals with disabilities, enabling them to lead independent and fulfilling lives while contributing to the society. Then other than that, Muhammadiyah efforts in eradicating poverty were also manifested in Lazismu, or Lembaga Amil Zakat Infak Sodako Muhammadiyah. We have it nationally and we have it specifically for Muhammadiyah, so Lazismu. And it is an institution responsible for collecting and distributing the obligatory alms, the voluntary charitable donations, the charitable giving within the Muhammadiyah networks. Lazismu has played a crucial role in managing and channeling the resources collected from individuals and from businesses who contribute to the organizations. These funds are then utilized to support various social welfare programs and initiatives. These programs may include poverty alleviation initiatives, healthcare services for those who cannot afford the medical expenses, educational scholarship for underprivileged students, vocational training and entrepreneurship program, and also humanitarian assistance during emergencies and natural disasters. Lazismu's goal is to empower individuals, improving their quality of life, and foster sustainable development within the Muhammadiyah community and beyond. So by establishing these facilities and services, Muhammadiyah demonstrates its commitment to addressing social issues and promoting the well-being of vulnerable populations. This initiative contributes to eradicating poverty, reducing hunger, and ensuring welfare by providing essential care, support, and opportunities for those in need. Muhammadiyah efforts in operating orphanages, family care center, nursing home, and rehabilitation center reflects its dedications to improve the life of individuals as now we enter the era where the individual life is matter across the different age of group and circumstances, aligning with the organization's mission to uphold Islamic principle and values in all areas of life. Move into the next slides. Okay, and in the educational sectors, it is important to note that the very first services that Muhammadiyah provides during their establishment is they operate a school in Ahmad Dahlan, the owner, the founder's house in his living room. So it is put highly concerned on educational sectors. And it reported that until 2020, there are more than 25,000 educational services owned by Muhammadiyah, ranging from preschool to the universities. To be precise, like 20,000 more preschool and kindergarten were managed by ISIA, the women-led women autonomous organizations embedded to Muhammadiyah, and then 200 more elementary school, 1,800 junior high school, 1,300 senior high school and vocational schools, and also 174 universities, 440 boarding school, and 50 disabled schools. In addition to that, Muhammadiyah has extended its educational service beyond Indonesia's border, operating 4 educational institutions abroad, like to contribute to promoting education, fostering cultural exchange, and providing educational opportunities for both Indonesian and international students in foreign countries. They have 1 university in Selangor, Malaysia, 1 kindergarten in Egypt, 1 Muhammadiyah Australian college in Melbourne were built around 2020 or 20, I think it's 2020, and the latest one was the Seoul Muhammadiyah University in Seoul, South Korea. Not only has successfully expanding the educational service around the globe, it's also interesting to witness that Indonesia, particularly in the eastern part, there are many of non-Muslims who are the student of Muhammadiyah school, like the one in Martapura and the one in Ambon, who have more than 50% of their students are non-Muslims. And they even provide non-Muslim religious subjects and non-Muslim teachers to accommodate, to facilitate the students. So it's indeed representing the inclusivity and significant contributions to the educational landscapes in Indonesia and beyond. And then the next slides. Okay, in the health sector, then Muhammadiyah also operates a significant number of healthcare facilities, including a total of 121 hospitals, including clinics, pediatrics, and maternal hospitals, as well as the latest one is the floating clinics in Ambon. So because our geographical is majority of the sea, so they built a floating clinic in Ambon. The healthcare institutions provide essential medical services to communities around Indonesia. They have the general medical care, specialized treatment, maternal and child health care, and also emergency services. Muhammadiyah also recognized the detrimental impact of smoking on public health and has taken proactive steps to address these issues. Hence, they established the Muhammadiyah Tobacco Control Center, or MTCC, which focuses on raising awareness about the danger of smoking and implementing strategies to reduce the impact of smoking on individuals and communities. Through the campaign, educations, and advocacies, MTCC aims to promote a smoke-free environment and improve public health outcomes. Furthermore, realizing that Indonesia is included on the Ring of Fire, where we are under threat of many natural disasters such as earthquake, tsunamis, and then volcanoes eruptions, etc. Muhammadiyah established the Muhammadiyah Disaster Management Center, or MDMC, in 2007, which play a vital role in disaster response and management, both within and outside Indonesia. So MDMC has collaborated with various stakeholders to provide emergency relief, medical assistance, and then to support the affected communities during natural disaster, humanitarian crisis, and other emergency situations. MDMC's effort encompass not only immediate disaster response, but also long-term recovery and rebuilding initiatives to ensure the well-being and health of affected populations. MDMC has involved in some humanitarian aid program and disaster management, such as earthquake in Palu and Lombok, and then the last one is the earthquake in Syria and in Turkey. They are standing its emergency hospital and humanitarian aid to Sudan, Nepal, Bangladesh, etc. And then the next slide. Okay, with regards to gender equality, Muhammadiyah has also several autonomous organizations. So it seems like the family of Muhammadiyah, they have Muhammadiyah as the father, and then they have Aisyah as the mother. They have Nashiatul Aisyah as the women, as the girl versions, and they also have the youth movement, Pemuda Muhammadiyah, as the boys version. So you can see there all of the family members' voices, all of the family members' aspirations are included in Muhammadiyah. So Muhammadiyah is having Aisyah that I mentioned before. It is a woman autonomous organization who's responsible in handling some of Muhammadiyah services, particularly on kids and women-related issues such as the preschool and kindergarten. As I mentioned before, it's managed by Aisyah, and then maternal and pediatric hospital is also managed by Aisyah. And then other than that, Aisyah also focused on the community development. For example, they provide project for the women in economic and then entrepreneurship training, and then protecting the women labor, etc. So the other hand, Muhammadiyah also have the girl versions, who are their projects are revolve around reproductions and parenting class, leadership training, and then the entrepreneurships. Meanwhile, the boys versions of Muhammadiyah, called Pemuda Muhammadiyah, focusing their movement on Jawa, or disseminate the teachings of Islam, and then the regenerations of the Muhammadiyah's body and the development of technology. So the autonomous organizations embodied in Muhammadiyah present a comprehensive gender-sensitive approach which strive to create inclusive space and initiative that promotes equality and empower both men and women. And then the next slide, last but not least, with regards to the justice and partnerships, Muhammadiyah developed their own legal aid service in every branch that aim to protect and facilitate marginalized people. In terms of partnership, Muhammadiyah work also closely with the government at various levels to contribute the national development and to address the social issues. By partnering with the government, Muhammadiyah can leverage resources and expertise to implement impactful programs and policy. Then Muhammadiyah also actively engage in interfaith dialogue and collaborations with other religious organizations in Indonesia. Throughout Interfaith Initiative, Muhammadiyah aims to foster harmony, peace, and social cohesion with diverse societies. It also actively participates in international networks and collaborations, engage with the private sectors, corporations, and philanthropic organizations to support its programs and initiatives, and involves local communities in its activities. So it works closely with the community leaders, the local organizations, and the volunteers to understand what actually the local needs, how to implement their projects, and to ensure that community participation and ownership is involved in their program. Next. So although it has successfully implementing like various programs in the multifaceted sectors in more than a century, Muhammadiyah, like any organization, faces also various challenges in its missions to serve the community and advance its goals. One of the significant challenges faced by Muhammadiyah is the development of its human resources. As a large organization, we have like more than 60 million members throughout Indonesia. With a diverse range of activities, it's required skilled and dedicated individuals to lead and implement the program effectively. However, the process of nurturing and training the capable leaders and volunteers at all levels can be demanding. So Muhammadiyah needs to invest in continuous capacity building program, leadership training, and skill development initiative to ensure the organization has a strong and capable workforce. Second, Muhammadiyah may face challenges in keeping up with the latest advancement in technology and utilize them to their full potential. So embracing the digital tools, the digital era, leveraging data analytics, and adopting innovative approaches can also enable Muhammadiyah to streamline its operations, improve its communications, and expand its impact. However, the integrations of technology across the program and ensuring digital literacy among its members may present challenges to require focused attention. And the third one, also Muhammadiyah have a relative strong institution within the country with so many programs inside the country. However, in its special branch abroad is still lack of improvement. Far from its center in Indonesia, the special branch of Muhammadiyah often facing difficulties to implement their program abroad with a limited number of resources, especially financial and human resources, as most of their members in the special branch is a master or PhD students who went income in a fast pace, and local government policy in each country is often different from what we have in Indonesia as a Muslim majority, so it's kind of hard to implement the program similar to what we have in Indonesia. So we're entering the conclusions to the next slides. Yeah. Okay, so Muhammadiyah for more than a century has been a true development catalyst with more than 60 million members across the globe and 25,000 more services and 90 million more service recipients, including non-member and non-Muslim people, both domestic and internationals. Through their unwavering dedications, long-standing commitment, and holistic approach, Muhammadiyah has emerged as a powerful force driving tangible impact and actively contributing to the achievement of the SDGs. By examining the significant contributions of Muhammadiyah, we aim to unravel the strategies, best practices, and lessons learned that have propelled their success. This case study not only serves as an exemplary model of how the NGOs can drive sustainable development, but also provides valuable insights and inspirations for organizations, policymakers, and individuals alike. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Time is given back to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Mrs. January, for your presentations. We have 10 minutes for question and answer or commentary session. Do we have any comments or questions? We have 2 here, 3? Okay, and one more, 4. Oh, so we have 4 comments. Okay, maybe all of the 4 people who wants to raise their comments or questions can move forward and lining up here so that we can have each one of you deliver your comments. Okay? The microphone is over there. You can pick up the microphone and then maybe come to the center. And I think anyone can do it. You can just come closer and so that the camera can capture you. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's perfect. Yeah.
All right. Before I'm asking my question, first of all, I want to thank the presentation because it was a magnificent one.
Can I have your name first?
Oh yeah. After this, yeah. So my name is Himala Kusumadewi, and I'm from the Department of International Relations from Universitas Brawijaya. It's in Malang City. And second of all, I want to apologize in advance if my questions are seeming to be a little bit sensitive or maybe offending, but this is at all cases not me offending anyone at all. This is just pure my curiosities. So I have two questions here. So first of all, so Muhammadiyah organization is initially and at the core is a religious organization, right? Which means that, but the current development has shows how Muhammadiyah has so many branches in like social contributions organizations. So my question is, as a religious organizations at the core, is the goal, the primary goal of Muhammadiyah will be in the end of the day, the goal of da'wah or like sharing, like Islamization of like sharing religious values and like expecting feedbacks from the society or like those who are accepting the social contribution of Muhammadiyah to accept the Islamic religious value that is distributed by Muhammadiyah. And second of all, can we present one of the slides because my question will be related to that. The gender equality slide.
The committee, can you show us the Mrs. January slides on the gender equality?
Yeah, on the gender equality.
All right, thank you so much. So, as we can see here that there is, for instance, there's Nashiatul Aisha, which is the girl-oriented organization, in this organization, and then there's Pemuda Muhammadiyah, which is the boy-oriented organization. And we can see here that the initial goals of both organizations are like the focus of their organizations are different, and somehow it has like still has like conformity with some gender stereotypes that are currently existing in society. So my question is that, how is exactly the interpretation of gender equality for Muhammadiyah? As I can see that, as we all can see that there is a lot of differences between what Pemuda Muhammadiyah want to achieve and what Nashiatul Aisha want to achieve. So like, for instance, Nashiatul Aisha still wants to achieve this like girlhood aspect of the women community, and then but Pemuda Muhammadiyah is more concerned to the general development of the Muhammadiyah and also for the society, which is like how I can say this, like they are being placed in the like, how can I say this, the leader of the society. And maybe this also relates to some conception in Islamic religious value. But I just want to know how then gender equality is being interpreted by Muhammadiyah in the end. That's all for my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I answer it directly? Because I'm afraid that I will forget the questions.
I will help you. I will remind you with the questions because we have limited of time, so we will just go with the other question first.
Sure.
Yeah.
My question is actually similar. My name is Intizar Abdurrahman from Ateneo de Manila. So you mentioned how Muhammadiyah again operates on fundamental Islamic values such as the pillars of Islam, and that, as mentioned before, it has several branches internationally. So my question is actually directed to the Philippines. So how does this organization actually uphold and adhere to these Islamic values, given that the Philippines is a predominantly Catholic country? So I'm asking if there are any compromises to be made, or how does this organization interact with Catholic communities, given that there are differences in values, again, as mentioned in like gender equality and the role of women and other Sharia laws, for example, in southern Mindanao. That's all.
Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. My name is AJ Rimundo from Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines, from the School of Humanities. My question is, I recently came across this term, NGOization, which a magazine I read recently defined it as the professionalization, bureaucratization, and institutionalization of services that used to be fulfilled by governments or organized by mass movements. Arundhati Roy argues that NGOs diffuse political anger and the politicized resistance. So I'm not that I personally agree with this contention, but I wonder if there's a way, or how do we tackle sustainable development goals, which is long term, beyond NGOs. Yeah, that's pretty much my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We have only 3 questions, right? Do we have another one earlier? No. Okay. Yeah, Mrs. January, you have like 5 minutes to answer all. Do you still remember the questions?
Yeah, I will ask you if I don't remember.
Yeah,
I think I will forget the latest one, but the two first one will quite similar. So it's questioning
the goals of maybe. I think the first questions mentioned something about is the goal of Muhammadiyah. Is it related to the Islamizations or?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. The Islamizations. I believe that the core goal of Muhammadiyah is not only about yes, it is about the religious, but I mentioned before that the goals is to implement the value of Islam in all aspects, like the one is Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar, which is to allow what is right and to forbid what is wrong. So I think that's generally implement to all religious. I mean, it's not that Islam that only allow that to allow what is right and to forbid what is wrong. We all have that same things, and then. It's not about the Islamizations, because I also mentioned that in the eastern part of Indonesia, we have all the member of student, all the student member of the school of Muhammadiyah is 100% or even 50% more non-Muslim, and we the Muhammadiyah also provides the religious teachers like Christian teachers and Christians subjects to facilitate them. So rather than we also have the subjects like Muhammadiyahan or the Islamic teachings, they don't have to follow because they aren't Muslims, so we provide the different teachers for the non-Muslims one. So I think it's representing the inclusivity of the Muhammadiyah at the first core. And then the second one is about the gender equality. It is still distinguished between women and men, then children and girls and boys. The distinguished between it is because Muhammadiyah highly appreciate all the genders, all the ages. So they made their voice is impossible to is possible to heard. They made their aspirations is impossible to implement. Like what today girl is needed. Like they need to know the reproductions. They need to know the how do they empower themselves when they were growth. And then the boys, the girls version and the boys version were also made to escalate the regenerations of the Muhammadiyah and the Aisyah itself. So it's prepared themselves to be the leader of Muhammadiyah, to be the leader of the Aisyah in the future. And then the third one
It's something, I think it's a questions related to whether when they interact with another community, for example, like the community, is there any compromises, something like that? I think it's sort of related to what you just said.
Yeah. I do actually not doing the deep research on it, but as far that I know that Muhammadiyah when they interact with the indigenous people, when they interact with the local people, they grow from the grassroots. So I mean, it's the individual itself who are like they have in-person approachment. It's not the institutional approachment that it more evolved from the individual approachment. They approach the person, they address the needed, so that the institutional can dive into it. So it's not from the institutional, but it's growth from the grassroots. I think that may be not answering your questions, and if you need more discussions, I'm open for the discussions in the lunchtime. Maybe if you haven't satisfied with my answer.
Yeah, due to the time limit, I think if you still have any other discussions you want to have with Mrs. January, you can have it during lunchtime, since we will have lunchtime upstairs. But okay, so the committee, is our time up, or is it okay? Okay, so if you have any more discussion, we have to take it to the lunchtime. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much. The committee would like to express our sincere gratitude to our three excellent, prominent expert speakers. Our time is up. Before I let you return to your designated table, we will moving on first with the certificate ceremony. Committee, are you ready? We will present the certificate of appreciations to our two expert speakers who are here, and then online certificate versions for Dr. Upalat. Okay, maybe we can go down from the stage, and then may I please invite Dr. Aryo Bimo as the head of department to deliver our certificate to our first and third keynote expert speaker. I'm sorry. I will just stay over here. Okay. The documentations. Okay, team. Yeah, move closer to the center of the stage. Yeah. Okay. Is it okay? So the first certificate is for our first expert speaker, Dr. Sharina. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for the mispronunciations that I made today. Okay. And then, is it okay? Is it sufficient? Thank you very much, Doctor. And then for the next, our certificate is for Dr. Upalat. We would like to convey our certificate online. I'm not quite sure whether you will show Mr. Upalat on the screen or not. Okay. Okay, Dr. Upalat, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us this morning. We will. Is it okay? Can you spotlight him? Well, this is one of the challenges of being. Okay, now that we see you, thank you very much, Dr. Upalat, for joining us with the 5 hours time difference, because Dr. Upalat now is in Vienna. Okay, so thank you very much. So our third certificate is for our last expert speaker, Assistant Professor January. Okay, is it good? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much to our keynote, our expert speaker. Please give another round of applause for our keynote, our expert speakers. I'm sorry, I'm not making any sense. But again, thank you very much, everyone. And I believe that this concludes our morning session. I will return this to the MC, but I do hope that we gain a lot from this morning sessions, and especially since we have speakers and participants from different countries this morning. Okay, thank you very much. I will return the time to the MC. Thank you, and I thank you for the opportunity for being the moderator this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our moderator, Dr. Tina. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a productive and inspiring time together with our distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Ayangnasha Maitra, and our expert speakers, Dr. Saloma Akpedonu, Dr. Upalat Korwatana Sakun, and also Ms. Januari Trisnani Tias. And with that being said, our main session is finally come to an end. I hope you found the presentation informative and helpful. I also hope you have been enjoying yourself at the conference thus far. Before we part, I would like to remind the online participant to fill in the attendance link that have been sent by our committee through the Zoom meeting and also YouTube streaming channel. And for the offline participant, you can scan the QR code that will be displayed later on the screen by our committee. Please make sure that you have your name and email spelled correctly, and please check your email frequently also, as the participant certificate will be sent by email a few days later by our committee. If you fail to fill in the attendance link, the certificate will not be given. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session will be held after a lunch and a prayer break until 13 p.m. sharp, and will be followed by the parallel sessions. For your information, the prayer room will be located on the second floor, and the restaurant will be located on the third floor. For the parallel sessions, there will be 3 offline panels and 4 online panels. And participant, please read your guidebook to know about the session locations. Now I will leave you with a quote by Stewart Brand, an author and innovative thinker, who once said, "We can see the past but not influence it. We can influence the future but not see it." Let us all be guided by the things we have learned and heard throughout the conference, so that we're able to see, influence, and creating a more sustainable future for generations ahead. Thank you, and thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. Participant, I would like to remind you again that the next session will be held at 13 p.m. sharp and will be followed by the parallel sessions. Once again, for your information, the prayer room will be located on the second floor and the restaurant will be located on the third floor. You can go to the restaurant right now, as the lunch is ready. Thank you very much. See you at 13 p.m. sharp. Thank you very much.